Thank you for tuning in to the Voice of the Victim podcast. We discuss a lot of sad and potentially triggering things on this show. We try to be as sensitive and cautious as possible, but if you are sensitive to things involving abuse and may be triggered, please think twice before listening to our show. There are over 700,000 sexual offenders in the United States alone. With all the social media these days, how can we protect ourselves and our children from these despicable predators?
Welcome to the Voice of the Victim podcast, where we discuss criminal cases that involve some factor of abuse. Our goal is to spread awareness of abuse that could be taking place around any of us and encourage everyone to take responsibility and report if they see a child or an adult being abused. It was almost 1 a.m. on October 15th, 2019 in Barron, Wisconsin, a small rural town of just over 3,300 people. The police received a 911 call from the cell phone of Denise Closs, but all the dispatcher was able to hear was muffled sounds of screaming and shuffling. A call was put out and 3 squad cars responded and headed to the home of Jayme and Denise Closs. They made their way into the house and were shocked by what they found. A man was lying on the floor near the front door, covered in blood. He appeared to have been shot in the head. They made their way further into the house, and when they looked into the bathroom, they saw a woman sitting in the bathtub. She had also been shot in the head. These people were Jayme and Denise Closs. They had a daughter named Jayme, but she was nowhere to be found.
Hello and welcome to the Voice of the Victim podcast. I'm Rosie.
And I'm Ryan. The case we're talking about tonight, you've probably heard of. It's been pretty huge lately and covered by a lot of people. And we typically wouldn't cover such a popular case while it's hot in the media, especially before a trial ever happens. But we're really excited to know that Jayme's safe, and we have kind of a personal tie to this case because I actually grew up in Rice Lake, which is about 20 minutes from Barron, and my niece and nephew live in Barron. My niece actually had gone to school with Jayme, so I feel pretty impacted by this case.
And before we begin, we do want to take a moment to thank our newest patron, Shelly.
Thank you, Shelly.
Yes, thank you for your generous support.
Yeah.
So, as we described in the intro, Jayme and Denise Closs were found shot to death in their own home, and their daughter was missing. Police examined the scene, looking for any potential clues as to where Jayme had gone. Jayme Closs laid on the floor, feet near the front door, with significant trauma to his face and head from a gunshot wound. They found splattering on the wall directly behind the front door. They also found 3 spent shotgun shells next to his body, and near the hallway by the bathroom, where his wife Denise's body was found. She was sitting upright in the tub, also shot in the head. There were boot prints and blood near the entryway that police identified was most likely from tactical-type boots.
So whoever did this came extremely prepared, and this next part gets really graphic and disturbing, but we do feel it's an important detail to the case to understand just how gruesome and terrible the scene at the home was.
Yes, the head trauma on Denise appeared to be from a gunshot wound to the head. The backside of her head and skull were completely removed and lying next to her body in the bathtub.
Yeah, so if Jayme had witnessed this murder, it would have been so awful to see. This was her mother. Can you even imagine that? We know it's disturbing, but it is what happened, and I think it's just so sad to look at the scene and try to imagine what happened.
Oh, totally. Detectives were able to deduce that Denise had attempted to barricade herself in the bathroom, and she was the one who had dialed 911. But before she could explain the situation, the intruder had kicked the door down and had gotten to her. Her cell phone laid on the floor of the bathroom near the door jamb.
Yeah, so this scene is a real nightmare. There's so much to think about. I wonder what was going through detectives' minds as they slowly uncovered this scene. I don't know how they could even do this, you know? I have a lot of respect for people that are willing to walk up on these terrible scenes and take care of the things that no one really wants to do.
So at this point, we know that James and Denise Closs have been brutally shot to death, but they have a single daughter, Jayme, and police have no idea where she is.
Yes, so now we're going to talk about an investigation into a missing persons case and who murdered these people. So do we want to get into that, Rosie?
Sure. Some people questioned whether Jayme may have had something to do with the death of her parents.
As sad as this is to wonder, we talked about Jasmine Richardson on the show before, so we know there's a bit of a basis for this suspicion. But police made it clear pretty quickly that Jayme was not considered a suspect at any time.
Police and the FBI teamed up on this one, and the same day, they searched the premises of the home with drones and infrared cameras, but they found no sign of Jayme. Investigators visited Jayme's school in Barron and interviewed teachers and classmates to get as much information about Jayme as they could.
Yeah, they were trying to figure out from her peers if she had any relationships that were secret from her parents or any online interactions with older men. They literally had no solid leads and were grasping at straws trying to find any kind of suspect, all the while believing that Jayme was in danger.
At 3:29 p.m., October 15th, 2018, a nationwide Amber Alert was issued for Jayme Closs. It described her as 5 feet tall and 100 pounds, with blonde or strawberry blonde hair.
I still remember this day.
I do too.
Yeah, getting the Amber Alert on my scanner at work. I actually took a picture of it, and it scared the crap out of me because it was in Barron, Wisconsin. And like I mentioned, I have family that lives there, and it hit me hard, especially because I have a niece living there that's only a year older than Jayme. I actually talked to my nephew that night, and he said the entire police force and fire department of Barron was at the Closs house that night searching in the woods.
Wow.
So they were throwing everything they possibly could at this.
I was at work, and I remember thinking, I'm scared to bring my nanny kids outside.
Yeah.
Just because anything can happen. It's so terrifying.
Yeah, and as I'll talk about later, that's the thing, this case, because it's so close to home, really makes you think, wow, this could happen to us.
At 11 p.m. that night, Miami police posted on Twitter about a tip they'd received earlier that day. Someone called in believing that they saw Jayme Closs at a gas station in Miami, in the back of a black Ford Explorer. 2 well-dressed men with beards sat in the vehicle, appearing to be about in their mid-30s.
So this sounds pretty promising, right? The Miami police even posted about it on their Twitter. But ultimately, the Barron County police were able to dismiss it as pretty much a dead lead.
The next day, October 16th, during a press conference, the Barron County Sheriff, Chris Fitzgerald, said that they'd been receiving many tips and following up on them, but still had no suspects. The FBI was monitoring Jayme's social media accounts, searching for leads, and investigators revisited the crime scene to make sure they hadn't missed any details. Fitzgerald did address the tip from Miami, saying he wasn't immediately discounting it, but any relevant and solid details about the case would come directly through him. He also said there was no clear-cut information definitively proving that this was an abduction, but they did believe Jayme had to be in danger. They also hadn't found anything leading them to believe it was sex trafficking.
Yeah, so I really respect the patience that they showed in this case. And even though they were patient, they were still diligent in searching for what happened. They looked into any lead they got, but they didn't waste time chasing leads that didn't have any credible evidence. We've seen cases where police just want to rush to close a case and end up going down the wrong path and even arresting and charging someone that had nothing to do with the crime. And even more sad is that sometimes we've seen them realize they were wrong but double down on their mistake and refuse to admit it to the public. If you want to know what I mean and why that's kind of on my mind, go listen to Generation Y podcast, their recent 2-part coverage of the death of Jerry Tobias. and you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyways, we can see the importance of basing an investigation off of evidence rather than just wanting to close a case. So, police did a really good job in this case, I think.
Mm-hmm. By 3 p.m. on October 16th, the department had already received over 200 tips about Jayme, but none of them really led anywhere. 200 tips seems like a lot. Is that a lot or is that normal?
I would say for a nationwide Amber Alert, that's pretty normal.
I suppose. On October 17th, while authorities were searching for Jayme, they actually uncovered some unrelated criminal activity, and an arrest was made. Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I tried so hard to find details on what this arrest was about, but I don't think it's really public. It's funny, though, because after he'd mentioned that, hundreds of people were commenting on the department's Facebook page demanding a clearer explanation of this. And I completely understand that desire to want details, as I'm sure most of our listeners do, but we just want to do our best to try to address others with respect, no matter who they are. And when we think about how hard these investigators were working, and someone's sitting at their laptop keyboard demanding more info, it's just kind of funny.
On October 18th, they finally began asking the public for help in searching. They had 100 volunteers to help search, but they found nothing. At 10 p.m. that evening, Jayme Closs was added to FBI's top missing persons list. Wow.
Yeah.
So they really are moving.
Yeah.
They're doing what they can, which is refreshing to see.
Yeah, and it's nice to see two agencies working together, the FBI and the local police, because sometimes there's like pride issues and jurisdiction wars, but yeah, they seem to work well together.
4 days later, on October 22nd, they announced that the next day they would be holding another, larger search with around 2,000 volunteers. The next day, all 2,000 of the possible volunteers showed up, and they searched from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. But again, they found nothing related to Jayme. Also, by this time, they had received more than 1,400 tips about the case.
Yeah, so a lot of people are really trying to find Jayme at this point. But after 2 huge searches and all these tips, it must have been so discouraging to be finding literally nothing of value to the case. Especially when you're dealing with all the pressure from the community and the nosy, entitled media, you know. I listened to a press conference with Officer Fitzgerald. He's the sheriff in Barron County, and just the way the journalists all would shout towards him and ask questions just makes me cringe. You know, they don't have much respect for the other people there or for the sheriff. And this case is about a real person and a real family going through a terrible, traumatic time. And these people are just hungry for a scoop that will bring them viewers for the day. I'm sure they do care, but it doesn't seem like they care about respect or compassion. And I understand that that's their job, and it's important to get the info out there, but there's so much competition wrapped into it. It's just sad in and of itself.
On October 26th, officials announced that Jenny O Turkey Store, where James and Denise Closs worked, was offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to finding Jayme. That's nice.
Yeah, it's a really generous employer. James and Denise must have been good workers.
Yeah. I don't like Jenny O's turkey farms, though.
Yeah.
They make me sad. Anyways, moving on. On October 27th, the funeral for James and Denise was held at a church in Cameron, Wisconsin, not far from Barron. It was packed with family, friends, and people from the community, but thankfully off limits to the media. 2 days later, on October 29th, something interesting happened that seemed like it might have been a break in the case. At 2:30 a.m., a man named Kyle, what is that?
I believe
Janky
Annis. Yeah.
What a sad last name.
Janky Annis. That's what it looks like.
It does. Okay. Well, Kyle Janky Annis from Cameron broke into the Closs home. He actually also worked at Jenny O Turkey Store in Barron. Kyle was caught in the act because police had motion-activated cameras set up around the house. He stole 2 girls' tank tops, underwear, and a dress, then stuffed them into his coat pocket. As he exited the house, police were outside waiting for him and detained him. Police asked him why he took the clothes, and he said, "People wouldn't miss those items, and I was curious what size Jayme wears." What?
Yeah, what the crap, dude? Does he realize this makes him look awfully suspicious?
Jankiness.
Police did determine that he had nothing to do with her disappearance, but either way, this is just so creepy and stupid.
It's really stupid.
Oh, he felt this urge to steal a 13-year-old girl's underwear, and he's just showing that he has pedophilic tendencies if he's turned on by stealing a missing 13-year-old's
How old is this
clothes.
We don't know.
I don't know. I think he's an adult. Well, he's working at Genio, so he's not a kid. But enough about this moron. The police cleared him for the kidnapping, so we'll move on.
By November, the search was starting to grow cold. The number of tips was steadily decreasing, and they switched their method from 24/7 reactive operation to a more deliberate and methodical effort. Basically, they were only going to respond to really serious leads from this point on.
Yeah, so around this time, people were starting to grow more and more hopeless. I know personally, I honestly thought deep down that Jayme was probably dead.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one night saying to you, Rosie, that, it's not looking good. I was feeling most likely she was gone. And I know that's a terrible thing to say, but I was back and forth. Other times I felt hopeful, like after researching our Elizabeth Smart coverage, I was feeling hopeful again. And I think I even mentioned Jayme at the beginning of that episode, but not giving up hope on her. But
the statistics aren't good for Jayme's case.
Yeah, after the first 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a tough time not knowing, no girl alive and no body. Just the unknown is a really difficult thing.
On December 12th, 2018, hundreds of people gathered in Barron to hold a Tree of Hope lighting ceremony in honor of Jayme.
Yeah, so just imagine what her family was going through at this time. Her surviving aunt who lost her sister.
Do you know much about this ceremony, the Tree of Hope? I'm wondering if there was a tree involved.
I don't really know.
It would be cold. December 12th, it was pretty chilly around then.
Yeah. Not as chilly as it is now, though.
Yeah, true.
It's getting low.
Things dwindled and began to look like we'd never get answers. But almost exactly a month later, there were some new developments.
California has the largest population in the United States and the site of some of the most famous true crime cases in history. But there's more than meets the eye to the crime in California. Join Sean, Jessica, and Charles on the California True Crime Podcast as they cover crime both infamous and overlooked from around our state, while looking at the deeper history that goes beyond beaches and movie stars.
So, do you want to go into the interesting story that happened just 10 days ago from the recording of this?
Yeah. It was a chilly day on January 11th, 2019 in Gordon, Wisconsin. Jeannie and Forrest Nutter had just made a 3-hour drive to their cabin in the area. They were a nice couple in their mid-60s and also had their dog Henry with them, who was very eager to go for a walk after sitting in the car for 3 hours. Jeannie skipped her normal routine of settling in and building a fire because Henry, the dog, just couldn't sit still. So they left, and Henry led her down the icy roads of Gordon, Wisconsin. I've never heard of Gordon, Wisconsin. That must be way out in the sticks, huh?
Yeah, it's a pretty small town, I believe. I mean, people have their cabins there for camping, so.
As they were walking along, they encountered something strange. a disheveled-looking girl came walking out of the woods on their neighbor's property. She was wearing a baggy sweatshirt and oversized men's shoes on the wrong feet. She came stumbling across the ice towards Jeannie and said, "I need help. I'm Jayme."
And Jeannie actually recognized Jayme immediately because her pictures were literally everywhere. Law enforcement really did do a great job of never giving up on her and getting her story out as far and wide as they could. And looking at the state Jayme was in as she emerged, she was really desperate and determined to get away from this place. And she had these giant shoes on the wrong feet still. It really shows that she didn't want to slow down or look back or even waste 5 seconds just to put the shoes on the right feet more comfortably. The details of what happened while she was missing aren't public, most likely because she's only 13, and the police are allowing her to talk in her own time and not prodding the information out of her. But if they have gotten any information about sexual abuse from Jake's confessions, they're most likely protected because she's a minor. But she really didn't want to slow down and risk getting caught again.
So once Jayme was found by Jeannie Nutter, she helped her get to the nearby...
Kazinska's.
Kazinska's?
Yeah.
Man, everybody has really weird last names in this one. Okay.
Nutter, Kazinska's. What was the other one? Janky anus?
I just got home from work.
Yeah. Rosie's a little tuckered out right now.
Jeannie brought her to the nearby Kazinska's house and pounded on the door, shouting, "This is Jayme Closs. Call 911. Peter Kazinska's was cleaning fish in his kitchen when his 2 dogs started going crazy after the pounding on the door. He had been home with his wife, Kristen, and his 2 kids. Kristen dropped everything and called 911 immediately."
Yeah, so the 911 call is a half hour long.
Wow.
But I listened to the whole thing a couple times. It was pretty much my whole morning today. And I edited it down to just the important parts because there's a lot of weird noises and random talking and just waiting for the police to show up. But here we go. We're going to play it for you.
Douglas County 911.
Hi. I have a young lady at my house right now, and she says her name is Jayme Closs. Yeah, a neighbor just walked up with her to our house and asked us to call 911.
Kristen, is the neighbor that walked her up, is she still there?
Yes, she is.
Okay.
1 second. She wants to know where she came from, how you got her, etc. Okay.
I was walking my dog, and we were almost home, and she was walking towards me crying, saying, "You got to help me, you got to help me."
Okay.
So I didn't want to go into my cabin because it's too close to Patterson's house.
And she said her name is Jayme Closs?
Yep. She said, "He killed my parents. I want to go home. Help me."
And what was the male's name?
Jake Patterson.
And she said he killed her parents and she wants to go home?
Yes. She didn't know where she was. When I saw her, she was saying, "Where am I? Where am I?" And I
Okay.
said, "You're in Wisconsin."
Did she say where Jake is?
You don't know where Jake is, right? She has no idea where he is. She told me that when he leaves her, she doesn't know that he's gone. He turns the music up real loud. He has hidden her under a bed. And he's the only one that lives there.
Okay. Do you know what road it's on?
It's on Eau Claire Acres Road. It's on the same road I live on. So he lives 2 doors down from me.
Do you know Jake?
No, he's never really been. I mean, we only come up here. It's a cabin. So we only come up here periodically, but he's never been friendly or talked to me. And we've been here 4 years.
Okay. Have you seen him, though?
No.
Okay.
I don't even know what he looks like. All the people that hang out at his house apparently do not know who she is.
Okay.
And I went for a walk at the right time.
Yes, you did.
So yeah, just try to imagine the overwhelming shock that Jayme was experiencing in this moment. She had been gone for 88 days, suffering trauma that we can only imagine. And now it was suddenly all over. They described her as in a state of shock, but she must have had a new sense of paranoia that she had never had before after all this, being that it all started when she was safe in her home, in bed, just like Elizabeth Smart, except this maniac murdered her parents right in front of her. So Jayme was able to provide the name of her abductor right away, Jake Patterson. She also said that he drove a red car, but she's unsure of the model.
She left with a deputy while the other investigators went to the nearby Patterson home to search it. While driving away, Deputy Ditbrender?
Another interesting name.
Ditbrender, yeah. Deputy Ditbrender, who was with Jayme, spotted a red car. Although Jayme was unable to say for sure that it was Jake's car, they ran the plates and saw that it was registered to Katie Patterson.
And this was actually Jake Patterson's sister. This guy was only 21 years old, so I guess I'll give him a pass, but he's still not even driving a car that was registered to himself. Just another funny detail.
What are you giving him a pass for?
For not having his car registered to himself.
Fair.
I don't know.
They began following his car, and as he passed the address where the car was registered, they pulled him over. As Officer Engelman walked up to the car, Jake got out of the car and said, "I did it." He was arrested within the hour of police responding to the 911 call. Wow, that was an easy fight.
Yeah, so all of this happened within, an hour. The woman walking the dog, Jeannie, saw Jayme, and right away they banged on the door and they called the police. Took a half hour for the police to get there, which I thought was kind of weird to have a half-hour response time.
Well, when I was listening to the radio, they said that, it's barren. They probably don't have a ton of police officers.
Well, it wasn't Barron, it was Gordon.
Well, even worse.
Yeah.
So there's if there's something wrong, then they had to...
I mean, Barron's not as much of a, in the sticks as Gordon is. Yeah, like you were saying, Gordon's way out there. So, anyway, even though it took a half hour for police to get there, it was still a pretty quick process because they were able to find Jake really fast and he just gave up.
Right away.
Yeah, just got out and said, "I did it."
So this Jake Patterson character has a bit of an interesting record. He had served in the military for 5 weeks of his 13-week Marine boot camp in 2015. He had been prematurely discharged because, quote, "the character of his service was incongruent with the Marine Corps expectations and standards."
Well, that says something about him and his character. Not that it alone makes him a terrible person, but he probably has issues with authority or hard work or something if he got prematurely discharged from the Marines.
He even lied on a job application when he applied to Saratoga Liquor in Superior, Wisconsin, which he'd submitted the day before the arrest. He said he served in the Marines for 9 months in 2017.
So he's only off by 8 months. Also, he never even finished boot camp, so...
And he changed the year.
Oh, yeah. It's true. What a great dude, taking advantage of that title without even earning it.
Yeah. So he was arrested on charges of homicide and kidnapping, but 3 days later, on January 14th, 2019, he was formally charged with 2 counts of intentional homicide, 1 count of armed burglary, and 1 count of kidnapping. Bail was set at a squeaky $5 million in cash.
Yeah, that's a lot of money, but they want to make sure he wasn't getting out.
Which, you're not getting out.
No. I don't think anyone would pay that much money for him.
No. So police interviewed Jake and got a clearer picture of what actually happened on October 15th, the day of the murders.
Yeah, so now we're going to talk about what really happened that night.
The night of Jayme's abduction, she and her family were asleep for the night when the sound of her dog barking woke her up. She noticed a light outside.
And this was odd because their house was in a fairly remote part of town.
Right. Jayme looked out the window to see that a car had pulled into her driveway.
And she got worried because they weren't expecting company. It was after midnight, and her parents were also asleep.
After seeing the car outside, Jayme went into her parents' bedroom and woke them up. Her father, James, got up to check things out and went to the front door with a flashlight. He shined it out the window and looked outside and saw a masked man dressed in black standing in front of the door. Pretty much the scariest thing you can think of after midnight, right?
Yeah, especially when you're out in the sticks.
He was wearing gloves and holding a gun. James asked the man to show him a badge, assuming that a man with a shotgun in the middle of the night would be law enforcement. I would be like, go. I wouldn't be asking for a badge. I'd just be like flipping.
I don't know what I'd do.
I-
I'd probably freeze and have a heart attack or something.
Oh, great. That's what okay. Better come up with a plan B, I guess. Jayme and her mother, Denise, were understandably worried, and they hid in the bathroom, locking the door behind them. Moments later, they heard a gunshot. Jake had just aimed the gun at James's head through the window and shot him. Then he shot the doorknob and let himself into the house. This is so terrifying that a shot to the doorknob gets you in a house.
Yeah.
That really freaks me out.
Well, not only that, but that a shot through a window killed the guy, you know? That's always been one of my biggest fears, and why I always close the blinds at night is someone sniping me from outside and then just driving off, you
Why
know?
would someone snipe you?
Why would someone take Jayme?
True.
Why
yeah.
would someone come and kill this guy in his house in the middle of the night?
If
you
we
know?
think wise about everything, then you're in a bad place. Like, you can destroy your life.
Yeah, it's scary.
Well, during this, Denise called 911, but she never got a chance to speak to the dispatcher. Jake rammed his shoulder into the bathroom door just about a dozen times before it finally collapsed.
So just try to imagine the terror Jayme and Denise would have been feeling in these moments.
When he got into the bathroom, the curtain was shut. He ripped it down and threw it on the floor.
Such a sad image, but when he ripped the curtain off, he found Jayme and her mom sitting in the bathtub, terrified, and Denise was holding Jayme with her arms around her as tight as she could, just trying to protect her.
Holding Denise at gunpoint, he forced her to tape Jamie's mouth shut.
And Denise was in a state of panic at this point, so she was shaky and struggling to get the tape on her daughter's mouth.
Jake got impatient waiting for Denise to do it, so he grabbed the tape and wrapped it around Jamie's head, wrists, and ankles. After incapacitating Jayme, he aimed the shotgun at Denise's head and pulled the trigger. She died on the spot.
Remember the description of how they found Denise that we shared earlier? It was pretty gruesome, but that's why we shared it, is so we can just try to imagine what this poor girl had to go through. I mean, it's great news that she was found, and a lot of people want to be happy and move on, but this girl went through a massive trauma just before being taken by a strange man and being held for 88 days and abused.
Yeah.
We want people to remember that Jayme will need as much love and support as she can get for the rest of her life, because as happy as people are right now to have her back safely, she's still lost so much and experienced so much that a 13-year-old shouldn't have to, and she had to watch her mother get murdered right in front of her.
Yeah. I mean, her life is completely forever changed. No matter the amount of therapy and the support she gets, she's still going to have to work through this for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
After he shot Denise, Jake dragged Jayme out of the house and threw her into the trunk and locked it shut. In total, Jake says he was only at the Closs home for about 4 minutes. Wow.
Yeah, so think about that.
Fast-paced. My gosh.
Yeah, it really shows us how quickly things can change. In just 4 minutes,
That's scary.
Jamie's entire life changed. It was essentially ruined in 4 minutes.
4 minutes. That is really scary.
Yeah.
Jake Patterson left the Closs home, and after driving for only 20 seconds, he passed 3 police cars with their lights and sirens blaring on their way to respond to a 911 call.
Yeah, they were so close to Jayme. Jayme actually remembered hearing the police sirens and probably had a little glimmer of hope to be rescued, but sadly they just went right by.
The pit in her stomach. I can only imagine how that must have felt. Yeah, yuck.
And this was just at the beginning of this long drive she was about to go on. Because this place up in Gordon, Wisconsin, I mean, that's pretty close to Superior, which is a pretty long ways away from here. It's like 3 hours probably. Rice Lake is probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours, but it's a long drive to be stuck in a trunk.
So how did Jake come in contact with Jayme Closs? The reality is really simple and really terrifying. It turns out that Jake was on his way to work one day when he saw Jayme getting on her school bus. He told police that once he saw her, he knew she was the girl he was going to take. That was it.
He had already made up in his mind that he was going to kidnap somebody. And how freaking scary is that? She became a target completely unknowingly. She was just getting on her school bus, going about her normal activities. Neither her or her parents had done anything to this man or had any contact with him. It's just a scary thought that we can't even feel safe going outside to get on the school bus without fearing that we're being objectified and targeted by some scumbag creep.
Ugh, yeah, it's scary. So after he spotted Jayme, he began stalking her. He had actually visited the Closs home twice before the kidnapping. He wanted to strike then, but there was too much going on in the house, so he turned away and planned to come back later.
And before he did, he actually modified his car to avoid being seen. He took out the dome light from his car so it wouldn't go on when he opened the door. He really wanted to get away with this. He even removed the light from the trunk of the car so he wouldn't be seen stuffing Jayme inside. And of course, he removed the emergency pull cord from the trunk door so she would have no way to escape.
Let's talk about what happened in captivity.
Yeah, so the details are pretty limited about what happened to her in captivity, but there were some small details.
To Jayme, it felt like she was locked in Patterson's trunk for about 2 hours before they stopped and he took her out and into a house. She didn't know it at the time, but she was 70 miles from home in Gordon, Wisconsin. He'd taken her to a cabin that belonged to his family.
This place was way out in the sticks.
Once they were inside, he made her take off her clothes and he put them in a bag, commenting about wanting to hide the evidence. He threw her underneath a bed and stacked totes and laundry bins around the bed with workout weights, weighing them down to prevent her from getting out. That must have been a lot of workout weights he had laying around, or had collected.
Yeah, apparently.
That's
those things are
interesting.
expensive.
If he had people over, he made it clear to her beforehand that if she alerted anybody that she was there, bad things would happen to her. When he would have people over, he'd blast a radio near her to drown out any noise that she might make.
Yeah. So in case you haven't heard our Elizabeth Smart coverage, I just want to address this. People can be quick to criticize people that have been in captivity about times they could have called out to someone but didn't. But they don't think about the massive amount of fear and paranoia that is thrust upon you after you've been forcefully removed from your own home. Imagine being a 13-year-old kid again, believing you're in the safety and security of your own home, then you're suddenly taken after watching your mom's head get blown apart. It's graphic and terrifying, but it happened to this poor girl, all at the hand of this monster. Now, when he tells her bad things will happen if she calls out for help, she can't help but believe him, you know?
One time, Jayme had accidentally moved one of the totes when she was following his orders to hide under the bed, and he threatened her just after a tiny accident. She didn't even do it intentionally. He would keep her under the bed for 12 hours at a time with no food, water, or bathroom breaks.
And that is a long freaking time to be stuck under the bed. I'd be so thirsty and have to pee so bad. can't imagine being forced to do this.
This is such a strange setup. I'm trying to picture it. She's under the bed and there's like a tote. Tons of totes, I guess.
Around the
perimeter of the bed.
Yeah.
And they have workout weights in them. For him thinking so thoroughly about the car situation and taking out the dome light and the cord in the trunk, I feel like this is not a very effective way to keep somebody in captivity.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, especially since she was able to escape it eventually.
Yeah, this is interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, Jake suddenly snapped at her and struck her as hard as he could on the back with the handle of a duster. We're thinking it's most likely a Swiffer duster or something like that, right?
Yeah. I wonder if he'll get charged for assault for this incident.
On 2 occasions, Jake had suspected Jayme of trying to get out, and he flew into a rage, screaming at her and punching the walls. It scared the crap out of Jayme, and she tried really hard to keep him happy.
And her trying to keep him happy does not mean she had Stockholm Syndrome. She was just terrified of what he would do if he got really mad. She did watch him murder her parents right in front of her, so she knew that he was capable of murder. Maybe
that was his tactic of the crappy captivity job? Just the more of a mental hold than a physical hold?
That makes sense.
One day, he told her that he was leaving and would be gone for around 6 hours, threatening her to make sure she wouldn't try anything. But Jayme got a burst of courage and tapped into her strong desire for survival. When she was sure he was gone, she found a way to push the bins and weights away from the bed and crawl out. She quickly threw on a pair of his shoes and walked out of the house. Not too long after this, she ran into the Pattersons' neighbor, like we already described.
I just think it's so great and fortunate that the Nutter couple had literally just driven up to their cabin in Gordon that morning. And what are the odds that Jayme would get a chance to escape the same day that Jake Patterson's neighbors came into town? Mm-hmm. And that Jeannie would go out and walk her dog just at the right time. It's such a relief.
Yeah, and I also think it's weird that Jake told her, like, I'm going to be gone for 6 hours.
That is odd, especially...
This guy seems a little off.
Cases we've seen where the abductor will say that as a test and then come back like in...
Early, yeah.
Yeah. Even just come back in a few minutes. Mm-hmm. Just be like, that was a test.
Huh. So what can we learn about this story? Well, it's heartbreaking and sad, but it's still being told. We may never know everything that happened to Jayme in that cabin, or at least not until she's 18. But there's still so much that we can learn from it.
Yeah. Like I already mentioned, this case hit me really hard because, as I said, my niece and nephew live in Barron, and to think about the fact that this monster was driving around their town looking for a young girl to abduct, it terrifies me. I mean, this could have been my niece, which really makes you realize it could be anyone. You never know where it's coming, you know? I don't know how this family could have avoided this tragedy. This monster was just so set on getting Jayme. So I guess what I took out of this is to really be grateful for the time we have with our loved ones, and also I want to get a new, more powerful lock for the door and maybe a thicker door and a security system. Door. Mm-hmm. I'm just grateful we live very close to a lot of our other neighbors' houses, you know?
I guess there is something good about living close to neighbors.
There's just no way to be sure.
Especially because we live by a prison.
Oh, yeah. Now we're going to talk about the prosecution. This guy, like we already mentioned, went to some extreme measures to keep from getting caught. Rosie, do you just want to reiterate some of those?
Sure. Jake Patterson had shaved his head and his face to avoid dropping any DNA through hair. He wiped down his father's shotgun and all 6 of the 12-gauge shells that he used. Then he wore gloves to make sure he wouldn't leave any more prints. He replaced his own license plates with ones that he had stolen, and he removed the glow-in-the-dark cord from inside his trunk.
Yeah, and like we described, that cord is the mechanism you can pull in case you get stuck in your trunk so you're able to get out.
When he got to the Closs home, he wore a balaclava. Is it a balaclava?
Yeah, balaclava.
Or a ski mask. That's what I'm going to call it.
Remember in that Vampire Weekend song, Horchata?
Mm-hmm.
And you said, I'd look psychotic in a balaclava?
No. Anyways, that's what he wore to hide his identity.
So yeah, this was pretty dang premeditated and meticulously planned to avoid detection.
The morning he saw Jayme getting on her bus, he was on his way back to work at the Saputo cheese factory. He only worked there for 2 days. Great work record, may I say.
Yeah, I guess he had to quit so he had time to plan such an elaborate kidnapping. What a loser.
Just after he saw her, he visited the Rice Lake Walmart and bought the black mask that he wore to abduct her. As we mentioned earlier, he'd made 2 trips to the Closs home to abduct her, but both times he was scared off by cars in the driveway. Other things he did to avoid detection while committing this crime was taking the dome light out of his car so it wouldn't turn on when he opened the doors. He did the same thing with the trunk lights, as we said earlier.
Mm-hmm. And he even chose the gun he would use to avoid being detected. He used his father's Mossberg pump shotgun because it was a very common gun, making it much harder to trace.
As he approached the house, he turned off his headlights and parked at the end of the driveway.
So he really did do all he could to plan this out and avoid getting caught. And if not for Jayme's strength and courage and will to survive, he may have never been caught. It's so scary.
So we want to reiterate, this girl had been through a lot of trauma. Even though she's been found and a lot of people are happy, she's been through things that the majority of us can't even imagine. We just need to keep showing her love and respect her privacy and the decisions of her family.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's interesting seeing people comment about how Jayme's family is exploiting her and using her to make money. But who are any of us to judge what this family has gone through and is going through and what they're doing? The whole family has been through a terrible trauma.
She's now living with her aunt, Jennifer Smith, and they're doing their best to show her love and to help her heal.
Yeah, we need to remember, Jayme lost her parents in a brutal way, and Jennifer lost her sister Denise and her brother-in-law in the same brutal way. It's a tragedy for all of them, and we just really want to stress the fact that we need to show respect to the family right now because they have the right to heal from this in their own time and on their own. Just because this case received national coverage doesn't mean their lives are our business. I will say, though, this really shows the importance of the true crime community. I mean, I was constantly seeing pictures of Jayme buzzing around Instagram and Facebook, spreading the awareness and the message. And the more people that see a missing person's face, the better chance they'll be found. So, yeah, in that regard, it is a happy ending because pretty much anyone who would have stumbled across Jayme would have known who she was.
Yeah, that's true.
So keep up the great work, everyone in this community.
Oh, it is nice that she was found for a change. It was a happier ending than we've talked about in the past.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that Michelle Knight, one of Ariel Castro's victims, who's now going by Lily, but she appeared on CNN just to give people an idea of what you go through after being found and just make people aware of the struggles. And there were comments on there basically belittling Michelle, Lily, for being like, if I'm a victim of burglary, does that make me an expert on all victims of burglary? And like comparing burglary to kidnapping and torture, and it's just, people are so ridiculous.
Oh yes, they are.
Because Michelle Knight's an incredible survivor, and she lost so much, and her entire life has been terrible. And we're going to talk about her in a future episode, because her book was really impactful to me. But it's nice to see a happy ending in this case, at least being found. And yeah, so that's it for Jayme Closs so far. You know, I'm sure more details will emerge in the future, but she's only 13 right now, so can't expect too much.
Right.
So, how are you doing, Rosie?
I'm tired. I'm
Yeah.
really tired. Late night. You didn't have to go to work today because it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I did. And I'm tired. And it's taco night. So.
Thank you, Rosie, for being willing to record tonight.
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of people appreciate it as much as I do. So.
But I'm excited because we're going on our trip on Saturday. So.
Yeah. So because Rosie is so tired, we're going to wrap her up. And sorry if you wanted cat news, but
There's none except for Zook pretending he has a bad paw to get detention.
well, we don't know if he's pretending or not, but sometimes he limps and other times he's fine. So it's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
But we should probably, I don't know. He hasn't limped at all today, so I think he's okay. He might just have a sliver because he always scratches our new chest that we got, and
That's from
It's kind of-
1918?
yeah, it's a very rustic chest, and we think he got a sliver from that because he's using it as a scratching post for some reason.
Well, we're trying to make him not use it.
But anyway, thanks again, Rosie, for recording this tonight. And I mean, you did probably hear a lot of weird cat noises while we were talking in this episode because they were kind of psychotic in the background. But we apologize for that. Hopefully our listeners will understand. We know you guys are very nice people and we appreciate it. So, all right. Well, thank you for listening. You can follow us on Instagram at VOV Podcast, on Twitter at VOV Pod, and you can email us at vovpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah. Become a patron, and you can hear our 2 episodes.
Yeah, we have 2 premium exclusive episodes at our $2 level. One on Jared Fogle, the Subway guy, and the other on
Henry Lee Lucas.
Henry Lee Lucas.
We just ran out of mugs, so if you want one, DM us on Instagram so we can get your order in when we make our order.
Yeah.
Or be a $20 patron, because then you can get a mug.
Yeah, we're gonna order more mugs because they're all gone now. So, all right. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. See you later, guys. Bye.